Hello, everybody. We're here with another product review video, and today we are going to be talking about the Awaken realms. Choo-choo, there you go. That's their little symbol. Their new Kickstarter that's currently active, and you can go back, and it is their battlefield objective markers, as well as they have bases and all sorts of things like that. It's a really cool Kickstarter. I will put the link down below so you can go check it out and give it a back. Their various tiers are actually, I thought, pretty darn reasonable. Awaken Realms reached out to me and wanted to know if they could send me a few so I could review them and talk about them, and I said sure. So they did provide these to me, absolutely at no cost. So I'll be very upfront with that. But they showed up in this nice little tin you can see here. This is where they came in. Cool little Awaken Realms branded tin. Super nice little product packaging there. There was more packing material in here. I just got rid of a bunch of it. And I had asked them if they would paint a couple of them for me just so I could show them initially. Now I'm going to paint a couple in this video for you as well. This is the floating crystal line. They also have several other options in there, as well as some that kind of light up, which are pretty neat. But these obviously come unpainted, so they put these on here with some bases, as you can see, just so we can see what they look like painted. Awaken Realms also does a lot of commission painting, and by the way, if you ever want to see really some top-notch, unbelievable quality commission paintwork, I highly recommend you go check out their YouTube channel. They've got some videos and tutorials up that are pretty fantastic. Especially if you play 40k and say have some Night Titans, I would definitely go check them out. So as you can see here, these are what they look like. This has been painted by them, and they did a really nice job with these. You can see it's kind of like the half moon of the normal rocks floating on top of the other crystals with these other crystals embedded into it. So very, very cool effect they achieved there. We're going to see what we can do and how close we can get it. And so what they sent me was kind of a selection of it. They have both these, which are meant to be objective markers. They also have these guys, which are meant to be sort of barricades on the field, right? Just general cover. You can see that already sits pretty flat. They sent me a couple extra of the objective marker ones. And then also, this is from the sort of Tesla line, which is like a wall with some bullet holes in it, and you can see like the power capacitors in the back. They have a whole range similar in this line. There's that. And then they also sent me the portal, which is really cool. The hand sort of grasping out of the portal. You can see it there swirling. So there's a very cool range of different items they have. They're all about this size. In the Kickstarter, they also have bases that are thematically similar to this. So you can sort of construct your army to play on your battlefield that has terrain markers that look like this. So, for example, there are crystal bases that are meant to mimic this style, as well as sort of the Tesla bases or the, I guess, more demonic type of lava bases as well. As you can see, they're made of this sort of heavy resin. It's actually pretty solid construction. It's not very bendy or anything. It's not a cheap material. These shipped to me from overseas. They were well packed. There was one tiny little shard. You can see it goes right there that broke. Other than that, they came in without any issue. And so the material's very solid when you look at it. Like, I haven't cleaned these up or done anything. I took these out of the package. And so you can see there is a little bit of like flash and stuff right here, right, that would need to be cleaned up. Again, pretty standard for resin cast. When you look at the sides and how these are cast, so let's look at this one here because this makes it very clear. Here we go. So you can see you've got the standard sort of flash here that comes on these things. It is pretty easy to just scrape off. See, it comes right off there and pretty clean and simple. Because the way it's cast, there's not really much in the way of mold lines. Like, as I can spin this around, the mold lines are pretty well hidden. You don't really see much of anything in that. Your main thing is just the little flash pieces and stuff like that, which again is pretty standard for this type of material. So I don't consider that any real negative. I think that's just what happens. We all expect probably to have to do a small amount of cleanup, and I would say overall this is pretty painless, really. A little bit of, you can see how easy that just comes right off, and a few minutes of that, and you're good to go. Okay. Nice sharp edges, especially with the crystals. You can see just how sharp those edges are to take your paint to do some good edge highlighting. So it'll hold that really well. Same with the smaller barricades. Again, this one's actually even a little more clean. It's got sort of that piece there, but really, for the most part, this one came out as a really nice cast. When I look at this, I don't really see much of anything in the way of too many problems. There's a little mold line like right there. I don't know if you can see it. There we go. Like right there. But other than that, fairly, as I said, that's, again, if I have to search to find a mold line, I'm going to call that pretty successful. So overall, I would say the product is very well made, and I like it. I like their designs. I think they're cool. I really like the floating crystal one here that they ended up sending. I think the demonic one is what a lot of people will really gravitate toward, because I think both of these two in the range are very useful for both fantasy and sci-fi. So whether you're playing 40k or Infinity or anything, Malifaux, you could probably use these, and these are pretty sweet objective markers. Obviously, in a game like Malifaux, especially, or something like that, you're frequently scattering objective markers around the board. Certainly in the Age of Sigmar, even, it's not uncommon for a lot of scenarios to use them. The barricade pieces are, I think, a little small to be anything other than like some interesting detail on your battlefield, but I love these the most, and I'll tell you what I love about these. My love of these is actually, so sort of these types of pieces is actually completely separate from, I suspect, maybe what they intended, because they kind of have the feel of like these small little pieces that go around the field. They could be objectives, they could be small, just detail to your battlefield. But what I think these are fantastic for are basing items. When you have special characters or something that you want to have stand out, I love stuff like this on your base. And if you look at the size of these, they are pretty appropriately sized for, say, like a larger character base. Somebody on like a 50 mil or a 60 mil base, something like that. So your bigger special characters or monsters or something like that, I think these are absolutely fantastic for. Especially with the nice new, say, big round bases in something like Age of Sigmar, you can often find yourself with some extra basing space. And to be completely honest, I wish I would have had these when I was doing like Archaon or anything like that with like the big 160 base. You got so much space in there to work with. And I did mine on like an icy snow thing. I would have loved to paint these up as ice crystals bursting out and put these on there as well. So I think they're fantastic for something like that. These could actually make... Oh yeah, really determined to knock this guy over. These could actually make really interesting mounts for like flying creatures or something. So I think that's kind of fascinating. And then the portal itself. The first thing I thought when I saw this portal was Ant from the Sustainable Center was recently doing a Night Stalker army for Kings of War. And they, like, that whole range doesn't have any figure support. And I guess one of the pieces in his army is this portal that kind of sits out there on the board and just does stuff and buffs the troops around it. And when I was looking at this, I thought, holy crap, in my mind, what a perfect portal this would be for him for that. I think this one's super useful as conversion for various figures, especially in the realm of chaos in either, Warhammer 40k, Age of Sigmar, whatever. This is, I think, my favorite one that I've seen. So what we're going to do next is, I'll call it right here. I think I've summed up a lot of like solid cast, low amount of flash and mold lines, easy to clean up. Clearly they paint up well. Again, Awaken Realms does amazing commission painting and painting in general. But what we're going to do is, obviously, we're going to paint them. So what I'm going to do is, when we pick up from here, we're going to be over in the airbrush booth so that we can put some paint on these and see how they look. All right? So we'll pick up there. Okay, so we're in the airbrush booth now, and you can see that I've went ahead and attached one of these to a little base just so I can paint it. And I did pin it down just because I wanted to test how easy you could like pin into the material. It reacted much like most resin, hard resin does. It was fairly straightforward to drill into with, just a pin vise. Very easy to work with. So if you wanted to cut, shave these, change them around, pin into them, pin, like, as I mentioned previously, you could use these as bases, which would mean, like, or terrain on bases, which would mean, of course, you would need to pin the model to the thing. And that was not complicated or time consuming. It was pretty straightforward. And I went ahead and laid down a good layer of primer. So this is some dark German gray. And as you can see, went on real smooth. This is my standard 2 thin coats of primer. Good adherence to the material there. As you can see, nothing scraping off. That's dried for maybe an hour or something like that. So no issues there. So we're just going to go ahead and kind of just put some more paint on with the airbrush so you can see how it works. What I like about these, I think that they're detailed, but you can paint them fairly quickly and easily if you're inclined to. I think that they would be, I think they're designed well to take paint, which doesn't surprise me because we're talking about a paint studio. That is to say, a studio that has built itself on its commission painting. Having a hand in designing these, so it doesn't surprise me that they would make their design ultimately with painting in mind, because certainly they've had their fair share of experience with a wide range of models. So we're just going to do some basic zenithal on the crystals, a little bit of the rock. I want to try to pick out the crystals separately, so I'm actually going to do this in a slightly odd way, in that I'm going to go up at the crystals and try to use the angles as opposed to down, because we want crystals to be dark near the bottom. So we're going to kind of just shoot at the actual rocks and try to use the angles to our advantage here. And you can see, pretty straightforward the way the paint goes on. No big issue there. As I said, I was very happy with how the primer both adhered and dried on it. The resin seems to really attach and adhere to the paint well, which is what you want to see. It's a good material for that. Okay, so there we go. You can see now how we've got the gray on the crystal areas. We don't need to be too crazy complicated with this. Basically, we just kind of move around. We hit the angles, right? Just making sure, again, this isn't really like a hobby instruction video. This is just more making sure and giving kind of the experience of what it's like painting these. Because with these kind of pieces, you don't want them to take a long time to paint. I mean, that's simply the reality. We're going to do a little bit of zenithal, like top-down zenithal on the rock, so that way we can just kind of, we want to pick out this nice detail that's in here. We can always pick that out later with some dry brushing as well, which we'll probably do. Okay, so now that's what we've got. We've done our crystals in a little gray. Let's get rid of our gray. We're going to do this all in real time so that we can see exactly how complicated this is to paint. Okay. So then we're just going to put in some white, and we want to get the tips in a fairly bright white, because what we're going to do is just go ahead and hit all of this when it's done with a little plasma fluid, one of my favorite colors from Minotaur. Because really the thing with this, and as I said, it's really the thing with a lot of these types of pieces, if I'm doing this, I want to be able to do it quick, right? I don't want to be spending a long amount of time on these things. So now we're just going to get the tips of these little crystals. Again, we're going to try to use the angles to create some interesting light effects and shadows, which we can do fairly straightforward without, really masking anything off. The model itself is fairly segregated, so it's pretty easy to put the paint where I want it here. If you really wanted to take a while with this, I'm sure you could. You could, you know, really get into it and get each little crystal, but we're not going to do that. We're doing this quick because that's what we want. Nice, quick little piece of either terrain or a basing piece or something we can put down. We want to spend time on a lot of our models, right? Okay. Just hitting it with some basic zenithal there on the... And now we're going to focus just on these upper angles, making sure they're nice and white and bright. Okay, so now we've got something like that. Again, pretty quick and easy. We're still operating mostly in real time here. So we can see how long these things take to paint, pretty much from top to bottom. Okay, so there we go. Again, we'll clean out the airbrush quickly. Okay, now we're going to put in a little bit of our Badger Minotaur plasma fluid, and we're going to see how that looks on here. This is from their Ghost Tint line, so that's the Badger Minotaur plasma fluid. Maybe my favorite paint ever made. Let me just say that. That'll be a separate product review. And you can see how we've left the crystals dark at the bottom and light up top. So now we're just going to go ahead and hit them with this. We're going to hit the whole crystal. This paint just has a wonderful sheen to it. It's pretty unlike anything else. And so my goal here is to obviously have the tip of the crystal be the lightest part. And if we want to overspray just a little in a careful fashion, we can even have a little bit of a sort of glowing effect right down on the rocks. So we can use the airbrush to our advantage with these in the way that it's set up. We can focus our plasma fluid down at the bottom to really enrich that tone down in the darker parts. Just got to make sure we get all sides of the little crystals. And I'm purposely here kind of overspraying a little, just so we get a little bit of glow, a little bit of sheen where we just applied our light zenithal previously. And there we go, right? Now, if I wanted to say, if I wanted to re-highlight that just a little, I could say take some of my white, drop like a drop or two of my white back in there into my remaining plasma fluid, because I've still got a little in there. Just really thin that out a bunch, because we want to keep it nice and thin and just do a little bit of a ghostly effect. Make sure we got a good flow. Okay, and then we could take it and just up at the top, we can hit those tops. Again, just using the angles of the crystals to our advantage. Right? We're purposely doing it very thin so that way we're only moving the color slightly with one application. That way we can come back in when we want to and move it farther. Like if I want to focus on a particular facet of the crystal and make sure that one turns completely white, I can do that. Whereas if I want to leave another one kind of dark, I can do that. Okay, so there we go. There's our painted piece. Pretty fast. Now obviously there's more we could do. We could go in, we could dry brush the rocks, pick out some of those details, wash that back down. We could highlight the edges of the crystals. But really, as you can see, I think that pretty much shows you that they're pretty easy and quick to paint, which I like. And I think you can get them looking pretty good, pretty fast. A little airbrush work. And really, you can, you could stop there if you wanted. Now, depends on how much you want to take them, but I think that's a pretty good looking piece of terrain just with that amount of work. And just to reference, there's the original one. Obviously, they did some more extreme highlights and stuff like that. But I think they both, with just some simple airbrush work, you can really get a lot done here. I'm just going to continue lighting up a few of the facets because I really want the top to be bright. If I was really going to take it up, I would just load up some pure white and go to town on just the edges, the tips, the crystal. Focus on a very few particular facets, something like that. But we'll call this right there. There you go. We've got our glowing crystal or floating crystals from Awaken Realms. As I said, their Kickstarter is active right now. Overall, I like the product very much. I think that they're very interesting. It's filling sort of a fun niche in the market in these objectives. They're useful in a lot of different games, fantasy, sci-fi. As I said, I like this range, the crystal range, as well as the demonic range. The sort of Tesla coil range is very sci-fi, but great for like Malifaux objective markers or something. Very solid construction, minimal cleanup time. I would say I spent to get this on the tape, or to get this into the paint booth. I spent maybe a minute, 2 minutes scraping the, just getting rid of the little flash and getting rid of a mold line here or there. Really very quick and easy. And the shipping that they sent it over to me from the time they were going to was pretty fast and effective. Like I said, they did provide this to me for free, but if it wasn't good, I would give you my honest opinion when it showed up. But overall, I think if you have a need for some very interesting objective markers in your game, look into the Kickstarter. I'll provide the link. My grade, solid A on these. I think they're fantastic as probably the off-label use of basing material for some of your bigger models or when you want neat flying stands or stuff like that. So check them out. Support them if you think it looks good. As I said, they do have bases to match these individual schemes. So they have, bases that are made of these crystals and demonic lava bases and stuff like that. Give it a look. All right. Thank you. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next time.